Welcome back to another episode of Kicking It with Coach Red, where we bring you all the news, stories, takes, and opinions about your favorite teams from the Pacific Northwest, from the good to the bad to the Mariners.
The sad, sad Mariners.
Hey, you know, the Mariners were a team that frustrated you for half the year, made you feel on top of the world, and then took your heart out of your chest and stomped on it on the ground for a long time. And now we have a whole off season to commiserate and talk about a whole lot of things. It was a wild end of the season. We had to collect our thoughts. There was a lot of things happening. We didn't want to be too preemptive. So we're going to break down the end of the season, talk a little bit about some of the comments that were made by players in front office, folk alike, and then kind of go into an early offseason plan on what we would like to see. Maybe not necessarily all what we think will happen because it's early. But before we do that, why don't I tell you a little bit about us? If you are looking for a guy, if you're like a mild mannered person and you've got like the good angel on one side and the devil on the other, I'm probably going to be the angel in this situation. I'm going to talk you off a ledge, keep you going and, make you feel a little bit good about things, especially the Mariners. And that's me, your boy, Coach Red. You can find me on Twitter at the real Coach Red, on Instagram at the real underscore Coach Red. Also, find me over on TikTok at the real Coach Red. Also, find the show over on YouTube. Search Kicking It with Coach Red. Like, subscribe, hit the bell notifications, leave a comment or two. And if you're looking for a guy who is going to be very impulsive, make outlandish sayings, and make you put your feet right to the fire, which there are a lot of people out there that want to do that to Jerry Deal Poto right now. But on this show, we just call him Cain.
That's me. And if as he's saying, he's going to talk you off the ledge. I'm going to tell you to jump. Let's be honest here. Yeah, but I'm Cain. You can find me on Twitter at Cain2406, on YouTube at Cain06, TikTok and Kick Cain0624. Follow us. Do it, freaking do it.
You're supposed to talk about the podcast page before that. Well, there's always a shot at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
All right. So the Mariners get eliminated from playoff contention
Sure
day
did.
before the end of the year, and Cal Raleigh comes out, and there were a lot of jabs being thrown, by both sides on this. You had Cal Raleigh coming out, seeing a team that went and acquired big name players to go with somewhat of a core. When you look at the Rangers, Lowe's a homegrown guy. You got Jace Young,
Young.
Adolis Garcia bounced around for a while before he settled in with them. I think he had Carter Wells out in the outfield who gets called up, Jonah Heim on this team. But then you augment with players like John Gray,
Nathan
Jacob
Evaldi.
DeGrom, Max Scherzer, Corey
Yeah.
Seager,
Jordan
Marcus Semien.
Montgomery.
Yeah. So you look at those guys, and Cal goes, it hurts to see a team that went out and got those guys. I'm hoping that in this next year we can get some of those type of players that can help our team. Problem is, Cal, this free agent class is nowhere near the last two, and some of those names were in these last two classes that were picked up by the Rangers. And then, dude, a little bit of a chef's kiss, a little bit by Corey Seager throwing some shade at the Mariners because Kyle wasn't super stoked on his exit. They did not make the playoffs his entire tenure. There were times where he was the last guy in the middle of the rebuild. He was
Yep.
the last soldier, and they played tight to the end of his last year. And he's like, you go spend money and you make playoffs. A lot of people said it was throwing shade directly at the Mariners front office.
And you know what? I can see it too. As you said with the Cal stuff, you know, yeah, the thing is the free agent market the last 2 years has been insane. And the Mariners went and signed dudes that aren't on the team anymore. All the signings they had in the offseason on the offensive side are no longer on this team.
Correct.
They were gone either trade deadline or a month after the season started.
Well,
like
the other thing I want to throw
fun.
in a caveat there, like Tommy LaStella wouldn't have been on this team if
Right.
K-Tram wouldn't have got hurt.
Right.
Pollock underperformed. Colton Long underperformed. I get it. But let's look at it this way. You know, at the start of the year, we were looking at this team. Your real subtraction from the team was Mitch Haniger. You augment that with Teoscar Hernandez, similar type players, more pop potential with Teoscar. You bring in injuries derailed you early because Dylan Moore and Colton Wong were going to platoon at second base. And with Dylan Moore's numbers against lefties and Wong's numbers against righties the last couple of years, it's a good little platoon. Yeah. Trying to ease Jared Kelnick back in, trying to build that confidence, having a platoon with AJ Pollock, who was typically a platoon player the year prior and had some good numbers in the WRC plus. You know, we were pretty excited about this team with the young core that they have. You just need some pieces. And that's the issue, because we can't just go hog wild, trading guys left and right, signing these big free agents. It works sometimes, but you have to have that core. You look at the Mets, they tried to go all in with not the youngest of cores. It didn't work out so well for them. Most of their big name guys are not on that team anymore and got traded away, and they ate a lot of money. You look at San Diego, that was one win away from the World Series last year, and they have a team stacked with superstars. But the one thing is, especially when you have good players, great players mixed in, there's going to be players that boom up, and you're going to have guys that have some regression. Like Jay Crokenworth was a guy that was phenomenal for the last 3 years and kind of fell off the table a little bit this year.
Sure did.
So you look at these teams and you have to find what's right for you. It doesn't work for everybody. You know, Tampa does something their way. They grow their own players. They've started to spend a little bit more money. They've been successful for a very extended period of time. Mm-hmm. You know, you have other teams that are spending their way. They're boom or bust. Or other teams that wait for that one crop of young guys that are playing together and playing hot, put a piece or two in there and make a World Series push. Mariners are in a great area right now because they've been playing good baseball the last couple of years. But after last year and the expectations that they put on themselves, this is probably the biggest disappointment for everyone, is the hype video at the beginning of the year. It said win it all. That's the goal. And some comments, the way that they were phrased by the front office after the season was over, didn't seem like that was the case.
Yeah, no. By the way, what front office personnel are we talking about here?
Jerry Dipoto.
Oh, Jerry Dipoto. Yeah. Like, oh my gosh, man. You know, the things that he said, you just don't say that after the season that we had. Yes, the whole 54 win percent over the next 10 years. It's not going to really affect much, or whatever he said. He's like, oh, that's great. Mariners fans should be grateful. Mariners fans should be patient. Hey, Coach Red, you want to tell me something? When was the last time the Mariners made the World Series?
Never.
How long did
for almost 50 years?
Okay. How long did we wait between playoff appearances?
21 years.
21 years.
22. No, 21.
Okay, 21 years. Jerry, we've been patient enough.
How many times have the Mariners made the playoffs in the history of the franchise?
From what I can remember, and you might have to correct me if I'm wrong, 94, 95, 2001, and 2022.
They made it another year in there. I believe it's 5.
Oh, 5 years and 5 times.
Once every 10 years on average.
Not good. And we don't need to go spend money. Other teams are doing it. Sorry, we can't all be the Tampa Bay Rays. Yes, they are a homegrown team. I know a lot about them. One of my best friends is a Rays fan, is very in depth with them. Yeah, you can grow your own guys, but they also draft well. They really do. And their coaching staff is phenomenal for the most part. So they can do that. The Mariners have traded away so much of their farm through years past that it's been tough, right? We finally get that little capital back and we're looking good. We're liking our prospects. But man, Jerry's talking out of his ass, dude. I couldn't believe the words that were coming out of his mouth. And like you said, it all sounds good in the long run because it's what Houston, Tampa, the Braves, all those top-notch teams do. But you just don't say that stuff after the season and how it ended. Like, come on, man.
You don't phrase it that way.
No,
Here's
not
my
at
thing.
all.
I don't disagree necessarily with what he's saying because, and to counter your point, you're talking about the Rays drafting well. The Mariners have had solid drafts the last 5 years. The
Yeah,
one thing that I could say is Jerry Dipoto and his team can put together a pretty darn good draft.
and I can agree with that.
So, but the 54%, what Jerry was alluding to is there's 6 teams that over the last decade have a winning percentage of 54% or higher. It's the Dodgers, the Braves, the Astros, the God, there's another team in there.
It'd
But it
probably
was
be the
like I
Rays.
think it was like the Rays and the Guardians.
Yeah.
So when you look at that, that's a good group. That's a group that you want to be in.
Mm-hmm.
And but the thing is you phrase it this way. We're looking for sustained success. Did we reach the goal that we set for ourselves? No, we did not. And a lot of the blame can be pointed at us for not obtaining those goals. The moves that we made in the offseason did not pan out like we expected. We projected a lot of progression or similar levels from guys, and we had some recession, receding points on that, but we also had guys that exceeded expectations. What we're going to do over the course of the next couple years, starting with this offseason, is we want to raise our floor every single year. We want to add wins above replacement players that put us in the position to consistently be in the playoffs and win that World Series. You say something like that, it it's better than that. And he came on 710 Sports with Mike Salk and said some of this was an attempt at humor. Jared, just don't try.
No.
Leave the comedy up to some other folks. But the other thing is that a lot of people have been pointing out is the magic that we saw from Trader Jerry early in his career has lost a lot of luster lately. Uh,
Yeah,
Look
I
at
can
the
totally get behind
Graveman
that.
for Toro deal that busts out. The Winker
Yeah.
deal, I think
It
that
was it
we
was
call it a wash because of Gino, but you look at Wong didn't do anything for you. The Teo deal, I'm going to give that a dub because you gave up Eric Swanson.
you got Castellanos, but you also gave up a lot for him.
Castillo,
Oh yeah, Castillo, my bad. Sorry.
you did, but at the
Phillies are
same
on the
time,
brain. Sorry.
you, he's an anchor of your rotation,
I agreed. Agreed.
and
But
he's still
you know,
dealing.
right, but you also gave up a lot. That's one of the magic deals.
It's the
And
thing that happens. You
I know.
look at what the Braves do.
I know.
The Braves build with the core. They augment with one or two pieces, usually via trade, and give up big prospects. You gave up big prospects to go get Matt Olson, and he's a 40 home
Yeah,
run guy for you.
sure
You
is.
jumped in on Sean Murphy for peanuts on the dollar, and it's tough when you see that type of thing. You look at the Yankees who consistently are trading for guys, the Dodgers who are consistently trading these slew of toss prospects who never seem to pan out as well as the guys that they traded for, like Mookie Betts.
Right.
Like
Right.
Mookie Betts, perennial MVP candidate, and like the top guy in that was Alex Verdugo, who's okay in the
Right.
bigs.
Right. Um, it's I don't know, man. It's just as like you said, it's been a little lackluster, and especially at like this year's deadline, right? Last year, you go out and get that stick in Carlos Santana, and he had a bunch of big moments for the Mariners, and uh, the only trade that happened was getting Ryan Bliss, Dominic Canzone, and my personal favorite, Josh Rojas. But you know, you traded for role players. And that was my big issue with it is, as you said, Texas, they went out and got Jordan Montgomery, who the last game he started against the Mariners, I'm pretty sure that's the game they lost. And was not a great time because my best friend was at the game and his heart was broken.
Yeah. But let's look at it this way. At the time, this is my devil's advocate side here. The Graveman trade hurt really bad. The Seawald trade also hurt really bad. At this point in the season, the Mariners' offense was scuffling, and the
Yeah,
bullpen was the shining spot. You had Topa pitching out of his mind, Munoz getting back to form, Brash getting back to something, and Spire playing out of his mind. Your best trade piece was Paul Seawald.
I know.
The thing is, the biggest hitter that was traded at the deadline was Mark Canha.
Yeah,
Jake Berger, so you could throw him in there. Like there weren't big name hitters traded. It was a pitchers dealing market, and the Mariners were not going to be giving up any of their starting pitchers because they were taxed out and they needed those guys to make the push that they did. You weren't trading Gilbert, you weren't trading Wu, you weren't trading Miller. You had no one to take their spot because of a slew of injuries that did not impact your starting rotation the year prior. So,
right.
with that being said, I wasn't necessarily as upset because you didn't have a hole in your starting rotation that you could fill with one player and giving up the farm, knowing Robbie Ray is back next year, knowing
Right.
that you have a young and emerging duo in Gilbert and Kirby and a bona fide stud in Luis Castillo. You're not going and getting another pitcher in in the market that it was last year. It would
Right.
have, and Canzone started off a little bit hotter than Rojas. Rojas came in clutch down the end of the year, and Ryan Bliss was balling out in AAA and hitting dingers and grand slams like it was his job. So I think that in the moment, being trying to be in contention, trading away a guy that should have been an all-star, your closer, to see him pitching in the playoffs, getting saves, getting scoreless innings, that's stuff that you love to see. It
Yeah,
hurts when that happens. But Paul Sewald did not have a great career before he came to the Mariners.
that's true.
And he's got the rest of this year and next year left on his deal. Now you've got club control of guys that fit your profile of controlling the zone, have untapped power potential from the teams they had before. It sounds like I'm talking about Mitch Haniger again. But
Right.
you get these guys that I think could be pieces that really help your team into the future. And it was a move they felt they could make at the time because of the strength of their bullpen.
Right. Right.
But it's not a good
And
look.
it's
It
not
was a better look than the Graveman trade.
right. You got a lot more back than just Abraham Toro. Um, and as you said, with Robbie Ray going down, that was also tough on the year.
Marco eating innings.
Right. And we
Hurts.
and we've talked, you know, off camera saying Robbie would have gotten at least 4 or 5 more wins on the season. Um, that's huge. If Kellenic didn't break his foot by being an idiot and kicking a cooler, you know, who knows how the season would have played out. It just hurts as a fan, and with as we said earlier, with the expectations that we had, the expectations they had on themselves to fall one game short, especially it's your first time leading the division in I don't know how many years, but
A lot.
yeah, like this is the time that the Mariners were, and they had that historic month, and for it to just end like that, then it just sucks, man.
Well, we've kind of touched a little bit on the trade. So, who are some of your trade targets for the Mariners?
Trade targets. Well, if we're going go big or go home, I think I'm gonna go big, and a name I've kind of seen thrown out there, especially because Their team is kind of dwindled, and it showed throughout the season. The White Sox center fielder Luis Robert, if you could have him and Julio in the outfield,
The pop, the pop is what gets you.
oh man, was he so hot this year? Oh geez, dude, he hit so many dingers and was just far above the best second year guy at the start of the year till the All-Star break, and then Julio, took that from him. But man, Luis Robert just on fire all year, and that would be one of the saving graces. There's your win above replacement, you know. And that's also, so you have 30 from Julio on the year. You had 26 from Teoscar, and you had 30 something from Luis Robert. If that were the case next year, that's a lot of home runs in the outfield. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Coach Red, what about you?
I've got a handful of names. The first one I want to go with, because I think that he would be the lowest cost addition, would be Brent Rooker from the A's. He's been pretty open out on Twitter the last couple of days, doing a lot of Q&As, and talked about his favorite away ballpark to play at is T-Mobile Park. Toughest pitch that he sees, Matt Brash. So he's already kind of got the eye of the Mariners faithful. He's also a power guy. He's gonna kind of fill like a Mitch Haniger type role, a guy that really broke out this year for the A's. Don't know if it's sustainable, but I think that your cost comparison to some of the other guys I'm gonna bring up is gonna be a lot lower with a Brent Rooker.
Okay. Okay.
Another guy, I don't think he's going to leave his team, but he just kills the Mariners. I know he doesn't do it year round, but he's just a guy that I think would fit in well with this club. That's Anthony Santander from the Orioles.
I would love that. I would
He's
love another
he's a
switch
toolsy
hitting guy.
player. He can play an adequate outfield. He's a corner outfielder. He's got good pop. He's got good speed. I would say that he's a wish version of Julio Rodriguez. He's not as big, not as powerful, not as fast, but he's still a very good player, and I really do like. It's
Yeah.
true.
I mean, like just having the switch hitting capability is kind of the thing that gets me. I love switch hitters. Cal did well this year switch hitting, as last 2 years have indicated. But I just think that, hey, just gonna get more. We have way too many righties on this team, and I think they need to have some switching it up to do. I like it.
My last guy is kind of the pie in the sky, and I don't think that it will happen. But going and getting a guy like Nolan Arenado, because
It's a
he's a
lot.
guy that has had a lot of individual success. He's also had some team success in his first couple of years with the Cardinals. The Cardinals are looking for young pitching. If they're going to try young MLB ready pitchers, Mariners have a handful of those guys. So if you're, and it was rumored that they were talking in the season as well about some of those young guys. So you could see this fester up a little bit. And to get those young guys, you're going to have to give up MLB type players and very good ones to get the type of young pitchers the Mariners have. They've pitched well above expectation, all four of their younger starters that were in the rotation this year. So
Hmm.
I think that, you know, making some numbers work, you probably send Gino back in his final year of his deal to kind of help some of those numbers out. But with Nolan Arenado, you get an every year Gold Glove candidate, a guy that's going to hit 260. He's going to be around 30 homers and around 100 RBIs every single year. And that's the kind of person you need hitting consistently 3-4 in your lineup. The Mariners
Yes.
lineup augmented so many times based off of who was hot, who was not. You kind of got to the point where it was JP and Julio, and then I don't know who's batting third. I don't know who's batting fourth. I know Ty France is probably batting seventh today. And then whoever's playing second base is batting ninth. That's just what I knew. But I
Yeah.
want to see more consistency in the lineup when it comes to lineup control. And I think a guy like Nolan Arenado, batting 3 or 4 for you in this lineup, is a guy that really does help raise that floor. When Gino's hot, there's not many people that are hotter when he's crushing the ball, but his peaks and valleys are a little extreme. And
I mean,
the
we
only
look
way I'm
at
getting rid of Gino is if I'm going and getting a surefire Hall of
yeah,
Famer in Nolan Arenado. If not, I
and
want Gino to play third. His defense was awesome this year, and I
yeah,
think that he is a guy that a lot of people like on this team too. And when he's right, he's really right.
right. And to cap on Gino, me personally, I had the expectation of what he was putting up last year. And at the plate, he was just doubles guy. He was a doubles guy this year. And there's nothing wrong with doubles. There's nothing wrong with doubles. But, you know, kind of wish there was a little bit more power on that side. But, it is what it is. At least he didn't get hurt this year. That's great. He's also the guy who played 162. So that's also wild. And like you said, with the lineup card thing, there was, I think they moved it, or Scott moved it way too many times. You got to have that core, right? As we've said, and to keep moving everybody, just it was musical chairs, honestly. Throwing darts at a board, like, oh, okay, batting third is Dylan Moore tonight. All right. you know, like stuff like that just kind of didn't make sense.
Yep. No, agreed. All right, let's go to some free agent targets. I've got a handful. I probably have more guys on my list than you do. I'm going to kind of work my way from the guys that'll probably be for a little bit less money and work my way up to the big dollar guys.
Yeah, let's get
Um,
yours out of the way. I want to talk about. I haven't looked at upcoming free agents because baseball's still going.
okay,
Um, but there's one I know I want.
well, we'll get to him last.
I know.
The first guy that I'd like to talk about is Trevor May from the
Okay.
Athletics reliever.
Yep.
He's from this area,
He's been a high
from
leverage
Kelso,
pitcher.
went to University of Washington, closed for the A's this year, had a little leave of absence for some mental health stuff this year, came back strong. And he's a guy that is right around 3.8 ERA out of the bullpen, which bullpen ERAs, unless you're a Hall of Fame caliber closer, your ERA is going to fluctuate year to year between 3 and 4. It's just what
Yep.
it is,
Yep.
unless you have an amazing season. And there wasn't a lot of firepower around him either, so it's a little bit tougher to play in front of tens of fans instead of tens of thousands of fans sometimes, because that
Yeah.
silence can be a little deafening and it can be tougher to play behind. But is a guy that you could bring back home. I think a good veteran piece to put in to the bullpen,
Mhm.
a guy that I think would really want to show out for this team.
I agree. In all those years he was on the Mets, he also pitched in a lot of high leverage situations. So that also adds to the aspect of bringing him to Seattle. Um, I do think, as you said, bring a veteran presence in there. I mean, the oldest guy on the team was Paul Sewald before he got traded, and you bring in that other guy who's going to kind of lock it down even more. And with the way that this Mariners pitching staff has, or the coach basically has kind of rose how the bullpen is, I think it could be a really great signing.
Uh, my next guy, this is just a fun one, and I'm kind of going nostalgic on one playoff run that he had. It's Kike Hernandez. And I'm going to throw it
Nice
out here
closer
like
in the
this.
playoffs.
I feel you remember when Ben Gamel and Taylor Motter were good for that short period of time, and they were the Flow
Ooh, I
Bros,
remember.
the Flow Bros, right?
I do. I do.
So I think that like Kike Hernandez and Dylan Moore both got a little bit of Latin flavor to them. Dylan's married to Paula, nicely, like some of my tweets, love her. And you got Kike Hernandez. They both seem like fun-loving, outgoing guys. And if let's say that Caballero is still on the bench, they could be the three Caballeros and just like take fun photos and be like the fun aspect of the team, because I think that's what Kike Hernandez really brings to a team is his energy. And when
Dude,
he's going, that World Series that he had was bananas
yeah,
for the Dodgers. And if he can get a glimpse of that, even if it's in spurts, I don't look at him as necessarily an everyday player, but a guy that has good postseason experience to bring on this team to help
it's
mentor some of the
also
younger guys.
Jerry's ideal guy.
He can
He
play like
plays
every
he
position.
plays every position except for catcher.
Yeah.
Next guy.
The next guy is probably who I think is probably the most realistic guy is Mark Canha. He's got a $12.5 million option with the Brewers, club option. He's slated by Spotrac to be around 8.5. So I doubt the Brewers are going to pick it up, especially since they got an arbitration war with Corbin Burns last year. They're
Sure
kind of
did.
like the Mariners, since they were the Pilots, kind of like the Mariners and don't want to spend a ton of money. So I think that going and getting a guy like Mark Canha, the batting average is a higher floor than most of the guys on this team. And that's what I always like doing is raising the floor for the Mariners, because baseball is a game of failure. And the closer you can get to not letting the ball fall out, the better. He
Yep.
could play outfield for you. He could play first base as well, give Ty France some rest. So this is a guy that I think
But
has
also
massive
DH.
upside and can be that guy that bats, six and is an on base guy, or just really propel this offense and make it a little bit longer.
Dude, Mark Canha has been deadly almost everywhere he's been. When he was with the A's, dude was just hitting tanks after tanks after tanks. Then he went to the Mets. It's also good there, and also helped the push for the Brewers this year when he got dealt there. Like the dude just rakes. He gets on base, and that's something this team really needs. And they need a consistent guy on base, and it doesn't happen a lot unless they're on their hot streaks. So I like it.
And those first three guys are kind of shorter term deals. I'm going to get into the guys that are a little bit more money and or a little bit longer term deal type guys.
Mm.
Next guy I look at is Lourdes Gurriel Jr.
He's also had a very good year.
Yep. Played with the young team. What I think of the Diamondbacks is the Diamondbacks are a lot like this team this year has a lot of parallels to the Mariners last year. Rookie sensation, you know, gonna win Rookie of the Year,
Shout out Corbin Carroll.
and just a scrappy bunch of guys
Yep.
that are eking out wins with a relatively young core. And I think that Lourdes Gurriel is a guy that's going to probably be more of like a 3-year type deal guy. And he's had his moments. He played well this year for the Diamondbacks and has had good track record in Toronto as well.
Yep. Yep. I agree. I like it.
The next guy that I've got is bringing back Teoscar Hernandez. I think the thing is, I'm almost to the top of like the power hitting free agents like that I've laid out here that are everyday players. Teoscar Hernandez, a qualifying offer, I think puts him at like 19 million. He's got 14 and a half this year. He's probably going to get near 19 a year on the open market. So if that's your top power guy in this offseason, and the Mariners are a team that almost lives and dies by the long ball a little too much, Teoscar did power us through some stretches of the season this year. And I think that doing that, at least putting the qualifying offer on him, at least guarantees that either A, he's back, or B, you're getting some compensation in the draft because of it.
Right.
And there could be a team that thinks they're one piece away that will make that deal.
Yeah.
The next guy I have is JD Martinez.
Martinez. Ooh, I do like that.
The reason he wasn't even on my radar, but the Mariners did something that they haven't done since Daniel Vogelback was here, and had a guy where his primary position was DH, and that was Mike Ford. That's what you're going to get from JD Martinez. I would like him to learn to play a little bit at first because I don't want to see him in the outfield because he's terrible out there. But a guy that can reprieve Ty a little bit at first, but can be your primary DH. All this guy does, he doesn't have a ton of speed, but he hits the baseball and he hits it hard and he hits it well.
And he does. He really does. And that's all he's done throughout his whole entire career. I would not mind it. You know me, I love dingers, so give me more of that.
The next guy I have on my list, I think the Mariners only sign him if they have a deal in place right after. I'll explain. That is Blake Snell, shoreline boy,
Yes. Yes.
going to
Give
win
it
the
to
NL.
me.
Give him getting the NL Cy Young this year. The thing is, he's going to be expensive. I don't think that you're going to have to give him more than 3 years. I think 3 years might be the max that someone's going to want to give him because
I
he's
think so
had some
too.
ups and downs. I could see a pretty high price 2 year deal. But with that, I think if you make this deal, that one of your starters, whether that's Gilbert or Kirby, then would be signaling a trade to go get a big time hitter with one of those guys. Blake Snell is going to cost you upwards of 24 mil a year.
I'm here for it because he's a two-time Cy Young winner.
And he's like Seattle born and bred, and he talks about it all the time. He
Does.
he's a huge Huskies fan. He
Mm-hmm.
wants the Sonics back, big Seahawks guy.
Yep.
You know, this is a guy that loves the area.
Also, I've been in his stream many a times on Twitch. The dude is a vibe. He really is. I would absolutely love to see that. Just give it to me.
All right. And that's all the free agents we're going to talk about.
Oh, heck you. Shohei Ohtani, I want him. I want him. I want him. Yes, he's not going to pitch again until 2025, but that's okay. Give me his 40 plus home runs a year.
Let me break it down for you there, young blood.
It's going to cost you an arm and a leg. I know that.
With Otani, I think the Mariners are genuinely in the running this time because he didn't come to the Mariners the first time around. Part of it was because he didn't want to be cast in the shadow of Ichiro. He doesn't have shadow anymore, and I know that he likes the area. Here is something that I think is unique, especially for the Mariners. Granted, Robbie Ray is not going to be back at the start of the year. It's already been confirmed he's probably mid-year. What you have with the Mariners is a unique opportunity because the Mariners realistically don't need him to pitch next year. They're one of the few teams in baseball that if you sign Shohei Ohtani and you say he can't pitch that first year, it's not the biggest deal.
It's
You add him to the
A-okay.
DH spot, and then the following year, then you are trading probably Logan Gilbert for a primetime hitter at this point because you've got Otani locked down, you've got Castillo locked down. You're going to keep one of Gilbert or Kirby. You're going to make them an offer that they can't refuse. You can't have all of your money tied up in your pitching staff because you still need to hit. I remember
Yep.
the year that we had Cliff Lee and Felix Hernandez, and I thought we were going to the World Series because we had two of the best pitchers in baseball. Cliff Lee was traded at the deadline.
Sure was.
So with Otani, he gets better. This deal will get better with age. And if you're looking, the Mariners are a very revenue centric organization.
Yep.
It's been well documented, well talked about that John Stanton is one of the least rich MLB owners in all of baseball. Shohei Ohtani, if you sign him to an enormous deal, the amount of revenue you get from added fans that are just coming to see Ohtani, your jersey sales for Shohei Ohtani that you're going to get a cut with in a Mariners uniform, your added exposure into the Japanese market and the people buying in to see Root Sports, even though it just got bumped to the premium on Xfinity. Welcome me to Fubu. See ya, Xfinity. Deuces. There's a lot of revenue that can be generated from him joining your team,
Yes.
and that's been shown with the Angels. And the Angels were not very competitive the course of his entire career.
We're
You
not
give
good.
him the opportunity to play along probably the most highly touted American League center fielder since Mike Trout in Julio Rodriguez. You have Cal Raleigh, who people love behind the dish. You have J.P. Crawford, who I think that he would gravitate towards as well. Ichiro is and him are very close, and
And
Ichiro's
Ichiro's in
in
the
the dugout.
clubhouse every single day.
Uh,
I just I
do I
need
think it's
him.
going to happen? Maybe. I, I
Maybe.
no, I legitimately I sit there and I'm like, from them slow playing and not paying Marcus Simeon, Corey Seager, Dansby Swanson, Xander Bogarts, Carlos Correa, all these big time shortstop guys, all these big time players. It
Yep.
was to make it was to make a push for something. If you're going to put your chips in, you might put it on maybe the best talent that's ever touched a baseball field.
I agree. I agree.
And you would gain a lot of favor with the fan base.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was at the home run derby, as were you, and people were clamoring for Otani
Yes, they were. They
and in
were.
the All-Star game.
Yeah.
It was great.
It was insane.
All right, let's get a little bit to the Mariners that are on the team. If the Mariners do dip into the trade market, who do you think is the minor leaguer that is most likely to be moved?
Class A. I do think Class A is on the move if they do.
I think like you
Um,
could probably trade almost straight up Brent Rooker for Jonathan Class A. I think if you're going after
yeah.
Santander, that Class A is in that conversation. I think he's
Yeah.
he's a piece that's close enough and he's got great speed. And I don't know how that fits into the younger Mariners outfield because he doesn't have as much pop as some of the other
Mm-hmm.
prospects the Mariners do. So I think that he's a little bit more of a speed guy, can be a bottom of the lineup guy that could fit in well in a new look athletics team or potentially with the Baltimore Orioles.
Yeah. I agree. Who is your minor league guy, Coach Ray?
If we're getting into the bigger deals, like if we do get to the Arenado, you're gonna have to be giving up a guy like Cole Young, and it's not something that I want to do. He shot up the boards. You heard a lot of buzz for Harry Ford at the beginning of the year, especially with what he did in the WBC. And he at the start of the year, he was the Mariners' #1 prospect. Cole Young took that over. Cole Young has done nothing but rake as soon as he's touched the professional field. This is a guy that came out of high school. He just finished up his first full year in the minors. High average, high power, high contact guy, and it's just a guy that's going to rocket up boards. And according to the prospect rankings, they're saying that his MLB arrival date is 2025. I think if he puts on another strong year like he did this last year, that he could be fighting for a spot on the opening day roster out of spring training in
Yeah.
2024.
Yeah.
No, 2020, 2024.
Got
That's next year. I don't think he's
it.
there. 2025. They
There
said
you
like
go.
25, 26, and I think he's closer to a 25.
Mm.
Um, with Mariner on the current MLB roster, who do you think would be the most likely trade candidate?
I think it's either Bryce Miller or Brian Wu. Um, yeah, also another person to throw into a big time trade as per se, like Arenado. You would probably send one or the other to acquire him.
Or Robert?
Uh, yeah, or a Robert. You're really going to be sending one of your they both performed well, both performed above expectation, and I think it's either one of those two. Coach Red, who do you got?
I'm kind of in that same boat as well. I think the news that Robbie Ray's probably not going to be ready till the All Star break puts a little bit of a damper on that. Unless you're
Mm-hmm.
going and getting a bona fide stud, you're hoping that Emerson Hancock can bounce back from his shutdown at the end of the year to join this rotation. Taylor Dollard was kind of the guy that was seen coming into the year that was the closest to MLB ready, and he did not make an appearance. You've got like Easton McGee, who threw a dazzler against the Blue Jays that you can kind of piece a little bit together. I mean, if we're talking about a guy that's going to be a 5 starter, which one of these guys is going to end up being the 5th starter for or even the fourth starter for a while, but realistically could be a fifth if you had
Mm,
more major league ready pitchers on this team. I think that with that, it's going to be one of them that would be the trade piece if you're doing something with the MLB roster. I don't think Kelnick, the upside he showed last year, I don't think you can get rid of him. Cal Raleigh is becoming the heartbeat of the dugout a little bit with JP Crawford, so you
yep.
cannot give him up, even though you have Harry Ford in the wings. I think that it's got to be one of those pitchers because you have to deal from a place of strength to help what we all know was our biggest weakness, which was the offense. And if you're
Yep.
trading one of these pitchers, it's to vastly improve the offense.
Yes. I agree. I agree.
Well, that was just a little primer. The quest for the World Series is still ongoing, so things will be shaping up a lot more as time goes along, and
Yep.
stuff will start to trickle out. And we'll be right there for you the whole way. And to even follow us when you're not listening or watching, follow us on social media. You can find me, your boy, Coach Red, at the real Coach Red on Twitter, on Instagram at the real underscore Coach Red, TikTok at the real Coach Red, and also search the show on YouTube. Kicking it with Coach Red. Like, subscribe, hit the bell notifications, leave a comment or two. Kane, where you at?
You can find me on Twitter at Cain2406, on YouTube at Cain06, TikTok and Kick, Cain0624. Also, follow the show on Instagram
And
at
Twitter,
and Twitter at
Coach
Twitter.
Red
I know
Pod.
Coach Red Pod. There we go. False, false, false. Do it, freaking do it.
Lefty should be back next week, so you can kill that a little bit right there.
Sure can.
Let's hope. But hey, as always, stay fresh.
Stay fresh, peeps.
Peace.